In May of 2001, Stephen and his 3 kids moved into a new home. Almost immediately upon moving in, Stephen and his kids began to experience paranormal activity. The pictures would fall off the hooks, and when Stephen and his kids would leave the house, they would turn off all the lights only to find them all turned on upon returning home. One day, Stephen's youngest son, who we will call Eric, runs out of the basement screaming and saying that something, quote, big was chasing him. Stephen could tell that his son was genuinely terrified because when he looks down, he notices that Eric had peed himself. Like he had an accident because of how scared he was. Now, some days later, Stephen and his kids were in the living room watching television. Stephen was on the couch when suddenly he sees a dark, shadowy figure appear in the doorway. This figure appeared to be made up of some sort of black mist, and Stephen could hear breathing coming from it. Now, thankfully, Stephen's kids did not notice it because they were too distracted by the television. Now, Stephen was obviously startled, but he didn't want to frighten his kids, so he simply tells them, "Everybody get up, we're going over to Grandma's house." The kids were a little bit confused, but they get up, and as they were all exiting the home, they hear a loud wailing sound. This sound was so loud that some of the neighbors' dogs even began to bark. So Stephen gets his kids in the car, and as they're driving away, Eric looks back and says, "Look, the basement monster is watching us from the window." So Stephen glances back and he sees that same dark shadowy figure he had just seen standing in the window.
I'm at a cemetery right now, right off Sam Houston, because one of the anonymous followers sent me this story, or told me this story because he told it to me in person. He said that one time, he remembers this happening, that there was 4 guys driving down the road going towards Rio Hondo. He said that they were laughing, they were all having a good time, when all of a sudden, the 2 guys in the backseat go quiet. And so the driver, he looks in the rearview mirror, and when he looks in the rearview mirror, he sees that both of those guys are looking towards the middle because now there is a lady dressed in old clothing sitting between them. That's scary. When that happened, it was because they were crossing right in front of the cemetery, the one that we're at right now. He didn't finish telling me the story because it was in passing, but I'm assuming they got scared shitless, I'm pretty sure. Now, this second story is also based off Sam Houston Road in front of the cemetery. This one actually made it to the news, allegedly. That's what the anonymous follower told me. So he said that a police officer was making his rounds. He was driving towards Rio Hondo, and that he actually sees the same woman pop up in front of him, in front of the car. So he has to swerve. And when he swerves, he actually ends up crashing. And this makes it into the news. He talks about his experience, that he saw a lady. That's why it's known now to see the lady on the road, this road that's right behind me. So there might be a ghost inside that car right now. And there is history, of course, and it did make it into the news, but I couldn't find any clippings of it. So if anybody does have record of it or remembers the story, please comment it down below. Or if you also have any stories or have experienced anything at this location as well, please comment them down below. It is off Sam Houston in front of the cemetery.
Shadow entities dwell in the lower astral realm, most of which are described as dark, evil entities, but some people claim to have positive experiences with them or even a neutral experience. My name is Kay, and in this video, I'm going to be describing the different types of shadow entities you may encounter while in the lower astral realm. Let's start with shadow people. This right here is a good example of what a shadow person looks like. They literally look like a shadow of a human being. I've been seeing shadow people ever since I could remember. When I was just a little tiny girl, I was terrified to go to bed at night because the shadow people would come and attack me on a regular basis. It took me a long time to figure out how to prevent them from coming near me, and if they did approach me, how to get them away from me. Now, every time I've seen them, they've attacked me. They have a very evil, terrifying energy about them. But like I said, some people describe them as being friendly or guardians, watchers, and some people even report having a neutral experience with them, that they're neither negative nor positive. They're just there watching them. Now, this right here is a shadow person, but they have red eyes. A lot of people report seeing shadow people with the red, glowing, terrifying eyes. These ones are especially malicious. Now, this right here is an example of a shadow parasite, or as it's called, a shadow spider, because it looks like the shadow of a spider. I've seen these numerous times, and they could be small or large, but they've also been equally malicious towards me. I've never seen a friendly one. They have like this roundish body, and like in the picture, all of these arms in different directions, and they could sometimes shapeshift into various forms. Hooded shadow alien entities. Now these I find to be really interesting because they're similar to shadow people, but they're smaller. They look like they have hoods on and like a cape. And they appear to be aliens, interdimensional aliens that come in a shadow form, and people have a lot of varying experiences with these as well. I've never seen hooded alien entities before, but I've heard a lot of people describe them, and most of the time they describe a negative experience. Sometimes they appear with red glowing eyes, but these hooded shadow alien entities are a lot different than the shadow people. You will know the difference between the two as soon as you see them. They're reported to have red glowing eyes sometimes, and those ones, again, appear to be more malicious than the ones that don't have the red glowing eyes. The Hat Man. Now, the Hat Man has become really famous in recent years because so many people have seen him and report this terrifying experience. There's a lot of questions and mysteries surrounding the Hat Man, but it appears to be a shadow person wearing a top hat with like a suit on. He speaks to people. People describe the Hat Man as being the literal devil because he's so malicious and just pure evil. I've never heard of anyone having a positive experience with the Hat Man. There's all sorts of really crazy stories surrounding him though. So if you'd like to see more about the Hat Man, comment down below, let me know, and I'll do a video just about this specific shadow entity. Shadow cats. Now, I've personally never seen a shadow cat like this before, but plenty of people have reported them. The Grim Shadow. People report seeing this shadow, which appears to look like the Grim Reaper. When you read through people's accounts, it's like something you do not want to experience. The Shadow Cloud. Now, these come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. People often describe it as a mist sometimes, or just like this floating cloud. During sleep paralysis, people report seeing a shadow cloud from the corner of the room moving to the other side of the room, or going back and forth between doorways, or just throughout the house. These are often seen during the daytime as well. All of these shadow entities can also be seen during the daytime, so nighttime, daytime, it doesn't matter. Shadow streaks are much like the shadow clouds. They could be seen in the corner of the house, moving around, following people from the side of their eye, during sleep paralysis. Again, this is really common. Now, with the shadow cloud and the shadow streaks, people will report negative, positive, and neutral experiences with all of them. So it varies from person to person. Shadow spheres. Now, I find these to be really interesting. I personally have never seen shadow spheres, but they sound like orbs, except instead of white, bright lights, they are just dark shadows that can be around people during sleep paralysis, astral projection, or even during the daytime when people are awake. They may see these floating shadow spheres. Again, positive, negative, neutral energy, it just really depends on the person and the situation. People have a lot of varying experiences with these things. Now, these were just some quick summaries of each shadow entity you may see. If you would like more information on any or all of them, please let me know and I'll do a follow-up video. And if you would like to read some more information on your own time, you could go to HeidiHollis.com and check out these pictures and more information about each. I got each image from her website. She has Shadow People and Hatman trademarked, so she is like the expert on this subject. If you would like some more information on how to protect yourself from these entities, go check out my page right now. I have some videos on how to protect yourself, some stories. You can learn how to astral project and so much more. So be sure to follow me at AstralK. And please share any personal experiences that you've had with any of these entities. I am really interested in it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all soon.
Shadow people, origins, and types. Not all shadow people were ever alive. Some weren't even human to begin with. These entities fall into three main categories: human alive, non-human alive, and artificially formed. Some are born into other dimensions. Others are astral corpses or shades, left behind when a soul moves on. Over time, that shade decays and becomes a shell, a dark, empty vessel you might now recognize as a shadow being. Some are created from the trauma within our own minds. A person's shadow can literally haunt them, formed by the accumulated emotional pain. Other times, a shadow being is created unconsciously by someone else. Shadow people aren't intelligent and they lack morals. But if they once lived, they may return to places or people they once knew, like prisons, hospitals, or violent homes. Attachment is rare, but possible. Some feed off of your energy for years, especially during sleep paralysis or emotional trauma. So what are they really? Shadow beings are leftover energy, fragments, parasites, and sometimes echoes of something darker. Until next time, stay safe.
If you've seen shadow figures since you were young, you might want to hear this perspective. I started seeing shadow figures when I was 5 years old. It did not stop until I was 21. I would see them almost nightly. I did not have to be in sleep paralysis to experience them. If you don't know what they are, they're essentially demonic beings that stand, at least for me, they were about 6 to 7 feet tall, always cloaked, hood went to over their nose. I could never see their nose or their eyes, only their mouth. And the presence of evil was indescribable. Now, I have never in my life seen an angel. Never. I had a near-death experience when I was 4, and I experienced the presence of God, and I've experienced the presence of Jesus, but never looking at. This is important. While I was asking God, why did you only ever let me see the demonic realms? Why did it always have to be wickedness? Why couldn't I have just had one experience where I'd seen an angel? Then I started questioning, like, am I a child of God, or what is this? And I got this answer clear as day, and I didn't get it for like 23 years. And it is, how could you know what you are to war against if you cannot recognize? I believe those of us who have seen these demonic entities since we were young were called to war in the spirit against them. Different people are called for different things. I understand that as disciples of Christ, you are taught to go out and cast out demons. So guess every Christian can, but there are some of us that we're called on a deeper level. See, we know what we're fighting because we've seen it. I know what I'm fighting even if I don't see them anymore, because I immediately know when I'm in the presence of. So just food for thought. I'll talk more about it if you resonate. Oh, and please don't tell me that they're like positive spiritual entities and that I misrecognize them, because I have a whole nother part for that.
Can someone tell me if I need to be concerned or not? My daughter is 3.5, turning 4 in the next couple of months, and she, every so often, within, is like literally from when she could talk, she has been telling us that she sees shadow people in her room. And when it first started, I really tried to not have any kind of reaction because I didn't want to scare her. We're not super religious or anything. But the first time, she said that they were so kind and that they helped her go back to sleep. So I thought, okay, maybe she woke up from a dream and it was just, it was something that's like, how kids are. Like, she just thought that she saw something because she had a dream and fell back asleep. But she's been talking about them now for years. She's going to turn 4. And this morning she told me that she woke up and the shadow people were in her room. And I asked her, oh, well, what do they say? And she said, well, Mommy, they don't say anything. They don't have mouths. I said, oh, that's great, sweetie. Were they nice to you? And she said, yeah, they're nice. They don't really say or do anything. Sometimes I can hear them in my head. Oh, okay. And what do they say to you in your head? And she said that they basically just say, go back to sleep. And that she didn't really have much to say about it. She said that she's not scared of them, but she doesn't really want to talk to them because they're just shadows. She said that she's not scared of them, which is good, I guess. But that she doesn't like to look at them for too long because they don't have faces. And I asked how many of them are there, and it's always 2. There's always 2 of them. She says that she wakes up and the shadow people are in her room, and sometimes they dance, but they don't scare her. Is this something to be concerned about? We're not really a religious family. If anything, we err on the side of spiritual. I don't get any negative vibes, but I can ask her about them and record it so that y'all can see what I'm talking about, but it's been going on years now, and she genuinely doesn't seem afraid of them, but is this just one of those toddler things that just happens, or, like, should I be concerned about this? I don't.
You've heard of the Shadow Man, but this woman claims she was friends with the Shadow Man for an entire year before his evil intentions became less than hospitable. Meet Kimberly. She's 51 years old now, and her version of events takes place in 1981 when she was just 7 years old. Kimberly grew up in a nice home in West Virginia. One night she woke up and looked across the hall into her baby brother's room. His crib was visible, and she describes at least 10 tiny shadow-like figures, about a foot tall, crawling up and down her 2-year-old brother's body while he slept. And beside them stood a 7-foot-tall shadow figure, human-shaped, completely dark, and silently watching. She tried to scream, but she couldn't move. She said she was frozen, paralyzed. Then she heard him, not out loud, but inside her mind. He already knew her. He knew things about her life, like how hard it was to make friends. She was terrified, and she thought, leave my brother alone. He replied calmly that he wasn't interested in her brother anymore. He wanted her. The 10 smaller figures around her brother disappeared, and he offered to be her friend. She was 7, lonely, afraid, and she says she accepted that friendship. And over the next year, he visited her several nights a week. They communicated telepathically. She compared the voices we all have in our head of ourselves. Well, he injected his own thoughts into her head. She would tell him about her day, and he could see it in her mind like a movie. She asked simple questions like, what do you do during the day? He told her he couldn't go out in daylight, and when she asked what he'd done that day, he would say, I came to see you. Whenever he touched her, her skin burned. She woke up with marks that looked like cigarette burns or road rash, sometimes tiny and sometimes the size of a quarter. Her parents noticed, a teacher noticed during scoliosis check. Now, during this year, their normally calm cat suddenly went wild. He was hissing, thrashing, and knocking things over. The Shadow Man appeared again and proudly told her he had gone inside the cat. He said that animals, dogs and cats, were easy for him to control. This wasn't a threat, but a demonstration. Eventually, he told her his true goal. He wanted to be inside her body, and he promised her everything she dreamed of. Music, fame, success for her family, showing her these visions inside her mind. And here's how she explains it. She didn't say yes, but she didn't firmly say no either, because in her 7-year-old mind, she believed that if something painful happened by accident, it might hurt less than if she agreed to it. So she stayed silent. And then one night he said, "Tomorrow night I'm going to come back. I'm going in through your mouth." She says she woke up the next night choking. Her jaw felt like it was opening impossibly wide, kind of like in one of those horror movies. It felt unhinged. She felt something was forcing its way down her throat. She dug her fingers into what felt like his body and prayed silently, "God, give me strength." And she said she pulled it back out. Now, he was furious, insisting she had already agreed. But she told him, "You are not my friend." And that moment changed everything. She asked him if he even had friends. But instead of answering, he mocked the fact that she didn't. And then after that night, he brought someone else, a second figure, same tall structure, but with red eyes. This one didn't pretend to care at all. He told her she was a waste of time, and they both laughed at her. Kimberly says she began fighting back in her mind. She imagined building a brick wall in her mind and hiding behind it. She prayed. She demanded that they leave. And when they finally did, she says she saw what looked like a cape flipping around and heard it snap through the air. Before disappearing, the first one said, "You'll talk about this for the rest of your life, and no one will believe you." And for almost 20 years, she told no one. But at the age of 25, she finally told her mother. And her mother admitted that during that same time, 1981, she had seen a tall, shadow-shaped figure in the house. Kimberly was raised Pentecostal. She believes God protected her. But what she went through left her with one interesting question when being raised in a Pentecostal church. A question she still wrestles with today. She wonders, when someone is speaking in tongues like they do in a Pentecostal church, is it always from God, or can some of it be demonic? She doesn't claim to know the answer, but she says for you to do your own research.
I saw shadow people walking across the field behind the haunted house where I grew up in. So I was hanging out with this other person, waiting for some other friends to pull up. It was past midnight, and we're just kind of hanging out back there. We were facing the field when I kind of looked up and I saw a couple holding hands walking across like the whole field. When they passed right in front of us, they were close enough to where I should have been able to see their faces, but they just had like their hoodies covering their head. And so it was really hard to see, but it really looked like they had no face at all. So I'm like frozen because, like I said, they were close enough to where I could have seen what they looked like, and they were making no kind of noise. There were some crunchy leaves on the ground, so I like know for sure that if they were people, you would have heard them walking by, right? Finally, make their way to the other side of the field. I look over to my friend, and he's just staring too, like he saw the same thing I saw. And so he starts asking me, like, "What the fuck did you see? Like, what was that?" And the whole time we're just shocked because on the other side of the field, there was like a bunch of trees and stuff. And so it looked like they walked into the trees, and then they just, like, we couldn't see anything past that. As they were walking by, I realized that a lot of the dogs were crying, like not barking, but like crying, like whenever they get scared, if that makes sense. And we just ended up leaving. I was like, fuck this, like I'm not waiting for anybody, let's just go home. So of course I had snuck out of my window, and I don't know why I was so scared to go back in there, because I feel like the shadow people were going to be waiting, you know, as if they needed a window to be open for them to get in. People used to say that that entire neighborhood was haunted, but like I never really talked to my neighbors like that to find out if they also had paranormal shit going on in their house. But after that experience, I honestly kind of believe it, because that was scary. But yeah, that was the last time I ever snuck out. Don't recommend.
Do y'all have time for another creepy ass story? Excuse my excitement, my rapid speed of talking, and my bulging eyes. It should just happen last night. I'm still a little antsy. It's gonna be a long story, so I'm just gonna jump right in. I want to get this done in one part. So not too long ago, I had posted a video about the first time I had like actually visually seen a fucking apparition or a shadow thing, like for the first time ever in my life. I said it happened in San Diego. Well, that wasn't correct, but that's gonna be why I'm telling you this is gonna be relevant to the story later. You're gonna realize. And that is how often this type of creepy stuff happens to me that it's become mundane to me. It's like when you go and brush your teeth. It's something you do, but like it's something that happens every day, but you don't talk about it. You don't think about it. This is how this shit has become for me. I am like a beacon for this type of energy, these type of things happening to me. So I forget stuff all the time, and then I'm fucking triggered, like I was triggered last night. So in 2016, me and my boyfriend at that time had decided to move in together in these apartments in Lancaster, California. So we move in, everything is fine for the first 2 months, and then after those 2 months, I one day just suddenly feel like I'm being watched, and this feeling will not go away. And then about a year in, we started noticing things around the house are being misplaced and moved around. I swear, a perfect example, I had put my reading tablet on my nightstand because I read in bed, and then walk out of the room, and I come back in the room, and the tablet is in the middle of the floor, the middle of the room. Like, there's no way the shit could have just fell and landed in the middle of the fucking room. It would be next to the nightstand, right? So shit like that was happening around the house all the time. And in the beginning of that, we were blaming each other, like, oh, I know you're fucking with me, like, that type of shit, right? But then it got to a point where I was like, okay, this, like, it obviously is not either one of us, because me and him would both be out of the house running errands or going out to dinner or whatever the fuck, and come back and shit has moved around. So we're like, what the fuck? So my boyfriend starts setting up cameras all over the apartment, right? Because he's thinking we have a frogger. Like, if you don't know what that is, it's pretty much someone that like secretly lives in your house and you don't know. If you ask me, I would much rather have a ghost in my house than a frogger. That is fucking terrifying. So we put up these cameras all around the apartment, but the shit is still happening. And it's happening like just outside of the camera view, or in rooms like where we don't have the cameras. Like our guest room, we didn't put a camera in there. The bathroom, we didn't put a camera in there for obvious reasons. So all of this that I just said that happened, this all happened within a span of like a year, right? So we're into our second year in this apartment. Now going into this next year, the activity just stops. But that next year was like the beginning of the end of that relationship. All we did that whole entire year was just argue and fight with each other. And it's not until one day that me and him are having a full-on screaming match. Me and him both are standing in the hallway facing each other, and to my left, to his right, is the bathroom. There's a hallway and then there's a bathroom. So me and him are screaming at each other. And the bathroom door slowly creaks open. Me and him both stop and look down the hallway. And we see a shadow. That's the only way that I can describe this. It didn't have like facial features or nothing like that. It looked like just this big tall shadow. It looked as tall as him. He was like 6'4". He was super. It looked as tall as him. And it was see-through, transparent, and it walks slowly towards us. And me and him are both frozen in fear. And we are both just watching this thing. I can't believe I just stood there. The thing walks down the hallway, comes right at us, walks in between us, walks into our living room, and then just dissipates. And me and him were left absolutely speechless. So that was actually the first time that I had ever seen an apparition. Not in San Diego, okay? But that will not be the last time. So me and my boyfriend end up breaking up and he moves out. But I ended up staying in the apartment because there's 3 months left on the lease, and he had paid the rent 3 months in advance to help me out so I can save up some money to go find my own place. So 3 months free rent, fuck yeah, I'm staying. So this one night, being super impulsive, I randomly decided to get a tattoo. I have a friend that's an artist. I invite him over. I tell him, you can spend the night because you're going to be up a while, like fixing my tattoo. I had a tattoo on my foot that I wanted to get fixed. So it's time for bed. I put him on the couch. I'm in the bedroom. I wake up the next morning, and this motherfucker literally looked like he has seen a ghost. He was sitting on my porch, smoking a cigarette, rubbing his head, like he looked super stressed out. So I walk out there trying to be all funny and shit. I'm like, what's wrong with you, baby mama drama? That motherfucker had like 8 baby mamas, and no, I am not exaggerating. So he stayed stressed. This motherfucker, without missing a beat, looks me dead in my eyes and goes, there's something in your house. And I'm like, oh, what the fuck do you mean? Do you care to elaborate? He told me he had woken up to use the bathroom, and when he sat up on the couch, he looked down the hallway. So it's the hallway, and then at the end of the hallway, it's my bathroom. But like to the left of that is my bedroom. The room branches off. He said he had looked down the hallway and saw a big, tall shadow figure just standing in front of my door. Like almost like it was guarding it, he said. He told me he was too scared to use the bathroom, that he had laid his ass back down, like praying for this thing to go away, right? He said he had stayed up for at least an hour just laying there. And he said every time he would look over, that thing was still there. He said that thing, it didn't move, it didn't go away, like it didn't give a fuck that I was looking at it. It stayed right in front of your door. He said that he had gotten the feeling that that this thing was trying to intimidate him. So needless to say, he never came back. That scared the fuck out of him. We had to continue my tattoo at his place the next day. So shortly after all this, I end up having to, leave the apartment. I move in very briefly with my mother. So I'm staying with my mama, and one day my mom randomly walks into the room and is like, do you want to go to church with me? And I'm like, no, I don't. And it was a Brazilian church at that. Like, no shade or disrespect to Brazil, but we're not Brazilian. We don't speak Portuguese. Why she wanted to go to this church, I don't know. So after my mom took me on this long ass guilt trip, I'm like, fine, okay, I'll go with you. So we make it to the church. My mama walks in first, and then I walk in. Tell me why, when I make eye contact with the pastor, the guy who's leading everything, he looks like he has just seen a ghost. Immediately, I am feeling very unsettled. Throughout the fucking service, he is locked in on me. He's preaching. He's just looking at me the whole time. Like there's not a fucking whole group of people there. I wanted to get up and leave, but I don't want to be rude and I don't want to piss off my mom, so I just sit through it. So the service ends. I'm the first one on my feet. Before I can make it down the aisle, he loudly, he was making it seem like he was talking to everybody, but he was talking to me. He was like, wait, we pray before we leave. We have to pray. So I take my ass to the prayer circle that's in the front of the church. He immediately puts his hands on my forehead like this. Excuse me, sir. I don't like people touching me, especially strangers. I believe in energy transfer and destiny swapping and shit. I believe in all that. And on top of that, I am a fucking germaphobe. And your hands are like one of the dirtiest parts of your body. Do not touch me. But like I said, I don't want to be rude, so I'm just sitting there. I don't want to piss my mom off. I'm just sitting there with his fucking his dirty ass hands on my fucking head. And he won't let go of my head. Mind you, there's at least 30 other people there. We're in a circle. The whole prayer, it was a long ass prayer too. It was like 2 or 3 minutes long. The whole time he's got his sweaty ass hands on my forehead. So as soon as he says amen, immediately I'm already halfway out the door. But when I walk out, I notice my mom is not behind me. I notice she stayed behind to talk to this dude. 10 minutes later, my mama hops in the car, lights up a cigarette, and tells me, so I was talking to Pastor so-and-so, and he said that you brought something dark in with you. I beg your finest fucking pardon? She said that he said when I walked in that physically there was something big and dark following right behind me. Immediately, I'm like, that thing from the apartment has followed me. It's following me now. So I end up moving out of my mom's, and that's when I end up in San Diego in Lemon Grove. And that was the last time, not the first time, that was the last time that I had seen that thing in my little San Diego apartment guest house that I was renting, where it flew out of the window. I have a story time about that, but pretty much that thing showed itself one last time in my room, and it flew out of my window. That was 2019, and I haven't seen it since until last night. So last night, I had company over. I'm making dinner. Me and him are talking. I notice he keeps looking into my kitchen. And I make a joke. I'm like, don't worry, the food's going to be ready soon. Just a couple minutes. He's like, no, it's not that. I keep catching something in the corner of my eye in your kitchen. Something dark. Immediately, when he said that, something tall and dark, I'm like, oh, shit, it's back. Right after I say that to him, like, oh, shit, it's back, I'm about to tell him a story. The fucking tongs that were sitting on my stove fly off of the stove right in front of me and him. I had my tongs just like this. When I cook, I keep my utensils right in the middle like this. There's no way that this could have just fell or slipped off like that. There's even a little dip here too. There's no way that thing just slipped off. That shit flew off of the stove. Flew off in front of us. My time is up, y'all, but now I'm dealing with that. That is what I'll be dealing with. What do y'all think though? Do I have a protector? Am I haunted? Do I got a little ghost stalker?
Okay, y'all want to hear my Shadow Man story, so here it is. I need to preface by saying this isn't actually my story, but I am involved. Shadow Man isn't after me, and I hope he never is, but anyways, I'll go ahead and get into it. Sorry if you hear background noise during the story. There's people out there cutting logs. I did recently move, so new background unlocked, but I have to paint, so try to look over it. My friend Susie, and I don't think she would mind that I'm name dropping her, so If you do, I'm sorry, Sue. Throughout her childhood and like teen years, she told me that she would always hear like somebody whistling when she was alone. She would always smell cigarettes burning, like when nobody was around. She wasn't just hearing things because sometimes she would have friends with her and they would also hear the whistle. When I first became friends with her, she was telling me a story about how her and her friend was driving down the road and in the back seat they heard somebody whistling. We live in the Appalachian Mountains, and when me and Susie first became friends, she told me a story about how when she was riding around after dark one time with her friend in the passenger seat, they heard somebody whistling coming from the back seat. Now, nobody was in the back seat. There wasn't anybody there. They stopped the car, they got out, they were scared to death. Nobody was hiding in the back seat. There was nobody there. There was no explanation for the whistling. She always felt like she was being watched and followed and just kept hearing this strange whistle. Fast forward and Susie goes to see a psychic. I don't remember all the details. If you guys want, I can ask her and she can probably give me more information. This psychic told Susie that she was never alone, that she was always being followed by this shadow man in a top hat. She told her, he's here now. He's over there in the corner watching you. And the psychic says he's smoking a cigarette. Remember I said she always smelled cigarettes when nobody was around? Fast forward even further, me and Susie live right beside each other, actually like above and below each other. I lived directly beneath her, so I could hear everything that was going on in her apartment at all times. Anytime Susie left her apartment, you could hear people running up and down the hallways, slamming doors. One day we were sitting in the living room of her apartment, sitting on the couch. You hear the whistle that she always hears. Out of the corner of my eye, I see a shadow running in her hallway. The whistling and the shadow man may not actually be connected. I 100% believe that psychic because there was definitely something that was following Susie around, and it probably still is to this day. I need to ask her if she has any new updates. So yeah, let me know if y'all want to hear more.
Hey, how are you? Okay, so it's a rainy, gloomy day today. So I figured this would be a good time to talk about shadow people. I recently just talked to someone I work with, and they told me a few creepy incidents that they've had at their old home, where she said she saw things out of the corner of her eye, things moving across doorways, and then she had a friend come and visit her, and when her friend was going to leave, this dark entity just came to her window and started pounding on the window, and she freaked out, swung the door open, and it disappeared. So naturally she felt like something was attached to her. And those nights that you're asleep and you can't get good sleep, you feel restless, you feel like that maybe there's someone in the room, or I don't know, just like a disturbance. It's probably because there is something in your room looking at you, watching you. Now, shadow figures come in all shapes and sizes. They can come in masses like this. They can be full-blown apparitions of a human silhouette. Something you see just in passing, or solid enough for you to think that there's actually a person standing there, when in fact it was a person. Now it's their spirit. Because I believe there's a point in death where some people do get stuck and they can't find their way out, or they're just not done with life. So that's where we get our hauntings and our visions and seeing apparitions like this. I believe they're real. I see them on a daily basis. Now, I'm not saying that I can go through a cemetery and see the dead. All I'm saying is that there is more out there than what anybody could possibly believe. And it can be very scary sometimes. Sometimes it can be comforting because you believe it's your loved one. But if you hear knocking in threes, that's not a good sign. If you hear kids giggling, that's definitely not a good sign. If you see something out of the corner of your eye, don't acknowledge it, because that could be a demon trying to trick you into engaging with it. And I saw a really good video too. And this is true. This is how you can determine whether or not you have ghosts in your home. Take a clear glass, fill it with water to the top, set it by your bedside. Make sure there's no sediment in it, that it's just clear water, good clear water. And by morning, if you see a bunch of bubbles and your water has shrunk, evaporated, I guess, that means that there is something in your home, because the paranormal drain energy, especially if you notice lights flickering, if your cell phone dies a little bit faster and you're not really on it that much, bulbs going out, you probably have something paranormal in your home. Now, people recommending the saging, prayers, they're not wrong. You know, do what makes you feel good and do what you think you need to do to protect your home. I have, but I think it's where I'm super sensitive. I still get visits. Hope you found this interesting. I just wanted to take a break off the norm. Comment down below. Let me know. Excuse me, I'm still kind of getting over my cold. Let me know what you think. If you've had any experiences like this, if you're going through it now, yeah, comment away. Let me know. Tell me your story. If you have videos you want to share with me, go ahead and send them to me. Yeah, and I'll do a video for you and tag you in it. All right. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Oh, by the way, for your sake, I hope it's daytime when you watch this. Bye.
We've heard a lot about shadow people. What are they? I've run into a lot of these, interestingly, from a diverse cross-section of countries and places and people. Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, Sikhs. Doesn't seem to matter what your belief system is. Shadow people affect everybody. But what are they? You'll read a lot on the internet about shadow people, and there's so many varying opinions of what they are. And I'm not going to tell you that I definitively know exactly what they are, because none of us do. We're taking information that we're getting from others, so people like our guides, things like that, and it's kind of an amalgamation of information. One thing that pretty much everyone can agree on is they are not from our dimension. They are also not dead people. They are never good. Those are the three things that we can all agree on across the board. So shadow people are most often drawn to imbalance. Praying does nothing. Doesn't remove them. Doesn't matter what faith you are. Your belief system has no effect on them whatsoever. They most often are visible at night, though they can be visible during the day. They've been described as darker than shadows and darker than black. They most often follow an outline of a very tall man with broad shoulders wearing a wide-brimmed black hat. Most people don't report seeing their eyes. I've never seen the eyes of a shadow person. It's almost like they're made out of a really dense smoke, darker than the rest of the room. Children in particular are bothered by them, but what are they? Again, I'm not an expert. I can only tell you what my guide has said and what most people commonly believe. It's believed that these are interdimensional beings, so I realize how utterly insane that sounds, but here we go. Interdimensional beings that often are watchers. Not saying that they don't interact with the living. They definitely interact with the living. It's almost like they bring chaos and they want to see how we deal with it. They can physically harm us. They can get in our heads. They can impact our surroundings. Often they cannot touch us though. They don't seem to be able to physically touch us, but they can definitely screw with our surroundings. They can cause accidents. They can create dark thoughts, up to and including suicide. Their entire purpose is chaos and fear. While they create those things in people, they also feed off them. So it's a mute cycle of harassment, fear, and food. Harassment, fear, and food. They're also almost impossible to get rid of. It's like they have permission to be here. This is the part I've never understood, but we really can't impact them. We can make it so that our environment isn't a place that's comfortable for them, but we can't remove them. That part I've never understood. My guide has always maintained that they're just part of life. So we can protect ourselves against them, but I see them almost as often as I see the dead in clients. Most often, it's dead people that are wreaking havoc, people that should have been crossed but haven't. Right below those, like, concentration of phone calls would be shadow people and issues that they're causing. The good news is they don't generally follow people. They can often be associated with a place, meaning that if you leave that place, they don't generally follow you. That doesn't mean that's always the case, but it is often the case that if you're in a home that has them, moving, oftentimes you won't have them in your new place, which means they aren't necessarily connected to people. They're most often connected to places. I wish I could tell you that we knew exactly what they are, but anybody who tells you that they know exactly what they are is lying. None of us know what they are. But they're here. They're part of life. They aren't good. They harass children, people who don't have a very strong degree of control over their own lives, what's going on in their lives. They create fear and chaos. They feed off those things. They're not going anywhere.
What's up? This is your boy Brez. I'm coming at y'all with another creepy event that happened to me a while back. So my mom moved us into this house over in Powderly. It was in Birmingham, Alabama. She moved us in this house that was on Mayfair Avenue. The house was burnt down, but it got rebuilt. And the thing that happened was the family was killed in the house fire. There was a little girl, the mom, and the dad. They got killed in the house fire. So we moved into the house or whatever. We brought the house back to life. We repainted it. We took some of the old stuff out of the house to put new stuff in and things like that. We completely refurnished the whole place. We renovated the whole house, basically. And why did we do that? Why did we do that? So my mama had something that happened to her. Well, she heard a baby running down the hallway. You could hear the little baby footsteps running down the hallway. She could never figure out why that was happening. Why it always happened to her. That was one story. What happened to me was even worse. One particular night, I'm up playing the game. Everybody in the house is asleep. It's like about 2:30 in the morning or whatever, and you know, like 3 o'clock. That's like the time of the dead or whatever. So I'm up playing the video game, and by the time I look up, it's like 2:55 a.m. So I took me a little break to go and play the game, to go use the restroom or whatever. And in our house, we had this long, dark hallway, and it had a light switch on one end of the hallway. Me, being the person that I am, I'm not scared of the dark or nothing like that. So I would walk down the hallway on any other day and won't have no problems. But this particular night, that shit did not work out for me. So I proceeded to go to the bathroom. And as I'm walking down the hallway, every footstep I take, I hear one. So I knew I wasn't tripping. I was like, every time I took a step, I would hear something walking behind me as I'm walking down this hallway. And when I sped up, it sped up with me. So at this point, I'm like, what the fuck? So at this point, I am speed walking down the hallway. And whatever it was speed walking with me down the hallway. And we had this door that goes to the kitchen right before you get to the bathroom. And once I walked past that opening, it was this tall black figure. And it stood over me. Tall black figure stood over me. And my eyes got so big, it was in my peripheral, but I could see this whole figure standing. And it stood every bit about, 6 foot tall, 6'5" probably, standing over me. Standing in the threshold of the kitchen door. And man, all this is going on while something is following me down the hallway. And as I'm walking fast, speed walking to get to the bathroom, because I know I'm not tripping, something is behind me. And then once I get past the kitchen door, it's this tall figure standing there. I didn't look his way because I was already petrified. My eyes got big when I seen it in my peripheral. So I goes in the bathroom and I sit there for like a whole hour. And as I'm sitting in the bathroom, I'm petrified and I'm scared. I didn't want to really move. I just sat there. And I mean, like, I sat there for a long time because I couldn't believe what had happened to me. So as I'm sitting in the bathroom, I'm praying to God, like, God, whatever this is, says, get it off of me. I don't know what this is. Is this a demon or what? But just, I'm praying it off of me. So as I felt a little lighter about the situation, I felt a little better, I prepared myself to get up and come out the bathroom and go towards the room. And once I opened the door, the hallway was still dark, and it was a long hallway. So I take a step again. I started walking. Tell me why it happened again. But this time I didn't see the shadow figure. This time, as I'm walking down the hallway, something is walking behind me, and I started speed walking, and it was speed walking right behind me. But when I got out of the hallway, it stopped. So my heart was beating so fast, man. So I sit down and I turned the light on in the hallway. It's like 3 a.m, like around this time, about like 3:15. So I turned the light on in the hallway. Cause like I said, I was sitting in the living room playing a game. And the lights was off in the living room. I turned on the living room light and the hallway light. I was scared as hell. So tell me why when I sit there and I'm looking down the hallway, tell me why I felt a cold breeze walk past me, brush my shoulders, and continue to walk past me going down the hallway. You could hear the footsteps, the floor creaking and all. Man, when I tell you, I almost shitted a brick. I ain't never been so scared in my life. You couldn't have told me shit that night, man. It took everything in me not to wake my folks up in that house and tell them it was a ghost hunting me in this house. I'm talking about I felt a cold breeze. Do you hear me? A cold breeze brushed past my shoulders like he was saying, like, excuse me, this is my house, and walked down the hallway. You could hear the footsteps and the floor creaking as it was walking down the hallway. Man, that was the most scariest shit that ever happened to me in my life. And not to even mention that it was speed walking, following me down the hallway. Like, I can't not forget to mention that shit. That shit was just, bro, let me tell y'all something, bro. Man, that was the most scary shit that ever happened to me. That's all I can tell you, bro. Scary.
Story time on how I encountered a shadow person / spirit. When I was about 11 or 12, I lived at home with my little sister, my older brother, and my mom. We lived in a 3-bedroom apartment, and it was a railroad apartment, so like the rooms were kind of connected. So there was my mom's room, me and my sister's room that we shared, and my brother's room that was in the front of the house. So we had been living at this apartment for a few months, and out of nowhere I would wake up around the same time at 3 o'clock in the morning. So one day me and my sister were asleep. The lights were off in the house, the whole house, and I had woken up at 3 a.m. like how I usually would. So when I had woken up at 3 a.m., I had felt like a presence. I don't know how to explain it, like a presence behind me. So I turned over, and when I turned over, I saw the silhouette of like a black figure standing behind me. When I saw the figure standing behind me, I closed my eyes and I ran to my mother's room, which was connected to our room. When I ran to my mother in her room, I went under her blanket and I went to tap her to wake her up, and I had told her that there was somebody in my room. When my mother woke up, she had told me that she felt like something was in the room too. So I just closed my eyes and I just stayed under my mother the rest of the night. the next following day, my mother had told the downstairs neighbor, her friend, what had happened, and come to find out, his mom had died in that apartment. And to this day, I do not sleep in the dark. But that is one of the many things that I experienced in that apartment. If you want to hear more, you could follow me, like, and share the video.
I was remote viewing one of my past lives, and I saw myself. The other me saw me looking into them. I think shadow people are just remote viewers. The stories about shadow people is that there are these shadowy silhouettes creeping behind doors and walls, spying on us, and vanishing the moment we look at them. And that's exactly what happened to me when I was looking into this scene from a past life of mine. I recognized myself, a little girl with ringlets, and I had a twin that wasn't identical. And I could feel that it was my sister Erica. We're not twins in this life, but we were in that life. The moment I was peeking in, the little girl that was me, I saw myself. Once this happened to me, I'm like, wait a second. All of the paranormal enthusiasts and all these people on these TV shows, they keep on telling us that shadow people are ghosts. Ghosts that are haunting us. But right now, I experienced it. And it was me looking into my past life. I was remote viewing. So what if shadow people are not ghosts? And they're not demons. What if it's just a psychic person spying in on us, like I just did? So here's my theory. What if shadow people are just remote viewers? Remote viewing is when your consciousness separates from your physical body. And this is how we can project across time, space-time. From black op experiments to ancient mystic practices, the art of remote viewing is very, very real. I mean, even the US military has Project Stargate. And it's about remote viewing. When someone remote views you, their consciousness enters your space, right? Just barely visible, just barely there. And they appear as shadows because they are not fully in the dimension we are. So you can't see their body because they're not fully there. You're seeing an impression of their consciousness. And this is a little bit like the rule about ghosts and spirits. And I'd never come to this conclusion if I didn't live it myself. Bottom line, my conclusion is that shadow people are not haunting us. They are observing us. They are studying us, gathering data, watching history unfold from afar. But the creepy part is that they see us too. So did you ever think that shadow people might be us, just remote viewing?
Have you ever seen this thing right here? The Shadow Man? So, the Shadow Man is said to appear to people who have had some kind of, I guess, like generational curse, or who have had a family history of that said encounter. Now, also, the Shadow Man is said to be attracted to negativity. So if you have like some type of negativity trait in you, like aggression or any of that, it will cling on to you. A lot of people who have said to encounter them in their dreams, or will see them in the corner of the room just standing there. Usually it will appear there for like the next a couple seconds before he disappears. A lot of people have claimed that this shadow man will actually get near them or stand there staring at them for a longer period of time, and will actually feel how this entity will touch them or even become a little violent towards their victim. A lot of people have seen them when they were like children. A lot of people have seen them as adults, but only appears for a certain period of time. Now, this is a worldwide entity. Like, many people across the whole world have encountered or have claimed to have encountered this thing. Where did it come from? I don't know. But it's been something generational for many, many, many years already, and it's very common across the whole world. Let me know what you guys think.
If you have encountered this, I want to know. Let me know and down in the comments if you've have had any experiences with this encounter, or if you've seen him in your dreams. So what did he do? I've never seen him, but my husband did, and I remember the one time he told me about it. He couldn't explain it how he felt, but he was scared, and his skin literally crawled when I showed him a picture. I was like, "Are you talking about this?" And his skin literally started to crawl because he's like, "Yes, that's it." So you guys tell me what you guys think, and let me know about your encounters. I hope you guys have a great day and enjoy. Mwah.
So one of my followers named Carson just told me there's this thing called shadow people in Arkansas, which he encountered. And guys, what is going on over there? Before I begin, if you have a horror story you want me to read, go ahead and follow my Instagram that's linked in my bio and DM me your story. So Carson is a senior in high school now, living in Arkansas. But the story he told me goes all the way back to his sophomore year. He told me it was a school field trip, the kind you think that's gonna be boring, just another museum tour. His class was headed to the MacArthur Museum of Military History, which is located in Little Rock. If you've never been, the museum is housed in the old Arsenal Tower, a Civil War era building that's been standing for more than a century. Locals say it's one of the most haunted places in Arkansas. Staff and visitors have claimed to be seeing strange figures moving in the corners of their eyes, to hear music playing when no one was there, to feel chills run through rooms that should have been warm. And the most famous legend, the shadow people. According to stories, these dark figures are soldiers who never left. Men who fought, suffered, or even died in connection with the old arsenal. Still lingering in the halls, watching, gathering, appearing in reflections of darkened corners. People describe them as faceless, human-shaped shadows. Not quite solid, not quite smoke, but you just know that they're there. Carson told me he thought that all of this was, of course, nonsense. Just spooky stories the staff used to hype the place up. He told me he thought that until the day he went. He told me he remembers it vividly. The tour was moving from one room to the next, but Carson had hung back to look at the display upstairs. Rows of military badges in a glass case. He leaned close, studying them, completely absorbed. Carson told me when he finally looked up, the room was quiet. It was way too quiet. The class had already moved on. And suddenly Carson told me he realized he was alone. Or at least he thought he was. Carson told me in the reflection of the glass, he saw them. Behind him, lined up in old wooden chairs against the wall, sat a group of figures. Human-shaped, slouched slightly as though they were waiting for something. Carson told me he can see the outline of their uniforms, their caps. He told me they weren't moving much, just sitting. They were just staring. And here's the detail that unsettled him the most. Carson told me even though he could see them clearly in the glass, he couldn't make out their faces. Just blankness, as if they were drained of their features. Carson told me he froze and the air around him felt heavy. It felt so cold, and he tried to convince himself that it was probably, the light just playing a trick on him. Maybe it was just shadows bending strangely with the glass, or maybe it was just reflecting off one of the other paintings or pictures in the room. He told me he forced a laugh to calm himself and muttered the words out loud, "Sorry, I just got lost looking at this," almost as if he was acknowledging them. But Carson told me when he finally mustered up the courage to turn around, they were gone. The chairs were empty and no one was there. When he turned around again to look back in the reflection of the glass, there was still nothing there. That's when he told me the panic hit. Carson swears he screamed, but what terrified him even more was the sensation that ran through his body in that exact moment. He felt a vibration, deep and physical, like the presence of whatever he'd just seen had passed right through him. He told me his heart was racing and he bolted for the stairs. He was running down the hallway, his shoes echoing through the old Arsenal Tower. Carson told me when he finally reached the ground floor, a staff member intercepted him, asking what's wrong. In this moment, Carson was crying, shaking, barely even able to get any words out. But he ended up telling them he told them about the shadows that he saw in the reflection of the glass. He told them about the way that they stared at him, how the room felt so cold. And here's the part that chilled him even more. The staff member didn't even look surprised. They calmly guided him back to his class where they were having lunch, but along the way, he leaned down and said something to Carson that he will never forget. The staff member told him, "What you saw were shadow people. It happens here. Soldiers, they show up in reflections, in windows and corners, and sometimes they just watch. Sometimes they gather. He then told me the staff member even added almost casually, they were probably having a meeting upstairs and you walked in on it. Next time, just pretend they're not there. Carson told me those words rattled in his chest. A meeting? The idea that these shadows weren't random but organized, lingering like soldiers still carrying out their duties? That made the hair on his neck stand straight up. He told me right after he sat down with his class, but he could not eat. His hands wouldn't stop shaking and nobody seemed to notice anything. No one else had seen what he had seen. To this day, Carson swears on everything that it wasn't just his imagination. He saw them in that glass and he even felt them in his body. And though he'll admit that it was kinda cool to see ghosts for the first time, Carson has never stepped foot back in that museum and he never will. He told me because once you see the shadow people, you'll understand. They're still there, watching, waiting. And if you look too long in the glass, they might notice you too.
So when I was little, I grew up in a haunted house. My mom went to the Bell Witch Cave whenever I was younger. And whenever I first encountered shadow people was when I was sitting at my desk. My desk was facing the window that faced the porch, that faced the entrance to my house, the front door. And so I would be sitting there and I would see these shadow beings going towards the front door and opening the door, what it looked like them opening the door, and then no one coming in through the other side of the door of the house. So that was my encounter with shadow people.
This huge shadow man ran across my room in the middle of the night. I used to live with my boyfriend in like a trailer house, and he had multiple other roommates that lived in this house. And mind you, it was only a 2-bedroom house. Some people slept in closets and others slept in the living room. Everyone was older and they were all mostly close to their deathbed. He lived with them because he was working with he worked for one of the roommates. It was like a close family friend and his mom knew the people. So he was living with them and I always wanted to be around him, so I ended up moving in with him about 8 months after we started dating. I was sleeping over before I even moved in, but it was when I moved in when he told me that years before someone passed away in his bedroom and it was of natural causes. But I didn't like that. I had so many paranormal experiences that I can't even remember how long we lived there, but the entire time that I was there with him, I had so many, but this one stuck with me. I was getting up to go to the bathroom and it was about 2:30 in the morning. So I'm opening my eyes, and you know how it takes a minute to just really focus to get up, to go do anything when you're dead asleep. I went to go sit up and I see this really tall, dark shadow bolt across the room and out of the door. And I just looked, and I looked back at him because he was asleep, and I laid back down and went back to sleep because I didn't know what else to do. I told him about it the next morning, but he told me not to talk about it because he's too scared of that stuff. But I had to tell him because it freaked me out so bad.